If psychology and pop culture had a baby, they'd call it Shrink Tank.
A new paper reveals more intelligent people are quicker to learn and unlearn.
90% chance that there's some weird animal out there.
Yeah. Stern's been doing this forever. And far more extreme. From Nashville and Charlotte, this is the Shrink Tank Podcast. Welcome, everybody. If you're joining us for the first time, a special welcome to you. And if you're coming back for more, thanks so much for joining us again. I'm Dave Verhagen in Nashville. We've got a great show for you. Our trending topic today is pet peeves. We'll get to that in our second segment. But first, let's meet our Charlotte panel. Dr. Emma Kate Wright is here. Hello, Emma Kate.
Hi, Dave.
And we're going to talk about pet peeves in the second segment. But would you say, just in general, you tend to get easily irritated by things, or pretty tolerant?
I think for the most part, I'm pretty tolerant. Yeah, I can handle a lot of random things that might bother other people.
I didn't know that you would say that, to be honest. I had no idea what you would say.
Yeah.
Fairly tolerant. And we know the answer to this one. Dr. Frank Gaskell's with us. And Frank, are you a fairly tolerant person, or do you get annoyed pretty easily?
Dave, I'm the most tolerant. I'm the most tolerant person.
You are the most tolerant
Most
person.
tolerant
You are.
anybody's ever met. I'm a terrific tolerator.
Hashtag fake news.
Huge.
Yep.
Huge
tolerator.
Huge.
You are. You're definitely the most tolerant person I've ever met.
I will tell you, I can tolerate things better now than I used to.
It's called drugs.
You know, there's nowhere to go but up. But I'm saying I'm a little better than I was.
You can tolerate having that thing on your face.
Huh.
The animal.
Yeah.
The animal. Okay.
It's
It's really testing my
You
tolerance.
can tolerate having that thing on top of your head.
Ooh, originality is on Frank's
You mean
side.
hair? Because he
Burn.
has hair. And,
Looks like a
and you don't?
schnauzer.
Hey, I love my schnauzer. Love me, love my dog. And Jonathan Hetterly is here. He's our certified Asian who rounds out the panel. Jonathan, are you easily annoyed and perturbed, or are you fairly patient and tolerant?
That is a good question. I can be very critical, but I usually turn it into some type of snarky, sarcastic remark, and maybe that's the way I exit it from my body and don't build up tension or irritability. But at the same time, and maybe it's just a professional byproduct, I think I've gotten better at letting little things kind of brush off me. So
you're getting better.
I'm getting better.
You're learning, you're growing, you're changing.
Let's have some inspirational music in the background.
It is. All right. Well, each week, as we listen to the inspirational music, each week, Jonathan trolls the internet to find a great story of psychology in the news for our first segment that we call
Be Human.
A new study finds that men in STEM subject areas overestimate their own intelligence and credentials, and underestimate the abilities of female colleagues. And that as a result, women themselves doubt their abilities even when hard evidence such as grades say otherwise. And a review of nearly 20 published papers on self-estimated intelligence concluded that men rate themselves higher than women on self-estimated intelligence. So Emma Kate, as our resident intelligent woman on the podcast, do you buy these findings?
Absolutely. There is a lot of research out there that shows successful women are more prone to having high levels of self-doubt. A lot of this stems from imposter syndrome, where essentially you think you're a fraud. And, the reality is all of the data leading up to you being a successful woman would suggest that you are, in fact, successful. But you think, how did I get here? I don't know how that happened. And so it's important for women to be aware of this. My background in terms of my dissertation, actually, for my PhD, was in math anxiety. And so, there's all of this research that talks about how we socialize males versus females with toys, and we encourage boys to play with toys that would foster spatial ordering skills and other things of that nature versus, girls, it's about relational dolls, making a house. And so there's all of this stuff from a very young age that is pushing women to feel as though they're not good at math. And so there's lots of different factors. So I like this study.
But what about, there's a ton of research there that really empirically documents that men are far more intelligent than women.
Well, that's when I would tell you to go shove something up your meh.
I mean, I figured that's also why men should be paid more than women.
Right.
Right?
Yes.
Is that no?
Yes.
Is that not? I feel like I've read that
so right,
somewhere.
Frank. It's okay. Now, for those who don't know, I learned something really fun about Frank. Frank makes a lot of money. We like to make fun of him for this. He spent some time in Iran when he was younger, and we
Yes.
learned that he had a driver and he lived in a palace.
I didn't live in the palace.
He lived in a palace.
I would go play at the palace.
Oh, okay.
That was our
Okay.
that was
You know,
our country
all right.
club.
We
It
go
was
to
a
the
palace.
mall. He would go to a palace to just chill.
We didn't have malls.
Right.
Good grief.
I'm wondering, the one question I have, and I'm curious to get your guys' take, is even when you think about STEM subjects, do you think that there's also a possibility that the analytical male brain might be more apt to have some real, like, lower social and emotional currency when it comes to how they view women themselves? I'm just curious. I mean, I think and this is really anecdotal, but I have a lot of guys that I see in therapy, and then when they're into a lot of the arts or writing and things of that nature, they just seem to handle interactions with females and show an aptitude towards how they view them or validate them. But then I get some really super analytical guys, and man, they're so concrete thinking. They're very black and white, and they can have one bad experience with a girlfriend, and they just can be very, very denigrating towards women. And I'm just curious if anyone else has come across that, even anecdotally.
Well, I'll speak to that in two things. So one, I think a lot of the really high emotionally intelligent guys are pushed towards careers that actually utilize that skill versus a lot of the STEM, there isn't that, I mean, it's science, it's math, it's numbers. So it is that analytical piece. And so these people, these guys don't necessarily have to use that emotional intelligence piece. So they're drawn to that field. But again, I have to go back to, I don't think that there's I think the brain for females is completely capable of being analytical in that way as well. And so again, it's how we socialize our girls, what we're pushing, and math education is a huge factor in terms of what, the confidence that girls have in these fields.
I do hear you, and I do think Jonathan's right, though. You think about what this is saying is that men in STEM fields overestimate themselves but underestimate women, and not to stereotype, but a lot of the men that are drawn to STEM related fields, engineers, mathematicians, are really good with the quantitative, analytical, rational stuff, and when it comes to more of the social and emotional stuff, they're not awesome at it. So I'm with you on that.
It's kind of odd to think about. You would think that women would be a lot better at math because they were the ones, walking around, picking berries, counting the beans, while we were out like, I'm going to go get the real food. And they're like, okay. So I figure, women should have created mathematics just to begin with.
Right.
Well, this is the one being human that's going to blow up online because we're going to get all types of trolls, the sexist trolls. But we do want to hear your feedback, as well as if you have any article or recent research you would be interested in us discussing, send it our way at feedback@shrinktank.com. But now we're going to switch gears and we're going to turn to our trending topic, which is pop culture pet peeves, the things that irritate us, get under our skin, or we just flat out hate. But let's just first open it up and broaden it. And I'm just curious, what are some of your guys' just general pet peeves in life? It's the things that you hate, get under your skin, whether it's rational or whether it comes from past experiences. What are your guys' pet peeves?
I do not like quite a few things.
I was going to say, we're going to need a lot of time here.
The rest of us are going to step out for the rest of the day, and Frank's going to have his own podcast.
I'd say broadly speaking, people, but especially complainers or also people that are way too happy. It just it makes me insane.
So basically said, I hate people, and then people on one side of the continuum and people on the other side of the continuum and everyone in between.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that. And I also don't like it when I go to a restaurant and the butter is really solid and not spreadable. That's like, now I have to sit and I have to wait for the butter to get like room temperature before I can spread it.
Such a
Why don't
first
you just
world
do
problem.
what you did when you were a kid, which was just eat the butter plain, pop it in your mouth like it's Tic Tacs.
I grew out of that.
You grew out of all the things Frank grew out of, that's the one he chose. So,
Oh, and I'll tell you one more. If I go to like McDonald's and I'm thinking, okay, I just want a little cheeseburger, and I get the cheeseburger and the cheese isn't melted and the whole burger is sort of lukewarm and has been sitting there for a while, and then I get really pissed and think, I'm going to go back and get another burger that's fresh, but then I don't, and I eat it, and then I feel bummed out.
this all makes perfect sense
Yeah.
for Frank. How about you, Emma Kate? Any pet peeves?
I have two big ones. So the first one stems from my sister and I, when we were younger, shared a bathroom, and we would have like all out wars about who was the last person to use the last sheet of toilet paper. And so like not having toilet paper when you go in the bathroom is worst case scenario for me. Like cannot handle that. The other is I also am, it drives me nuts when people let their dogs poop on the sidewalk and they don't pick it up. I'm like, at least like take a stick and like shove it in the grass. But those are my two.
Those are good ones.
Yeah, those are good ones.
All right, I have two. One is I cannot stand it if someone clips their toenails or even fingernails in front of me. Can't stand it. I
will remember this.
I go into a murderous rage.
I can't wait to see you.
This is gonna Frank's gonna do this to irritate me, and then I'm gonna launch into violence.
I'm going to cut my toenails in front of you.
Yeah.
Can't stand it. So gross. The sound is gross. The little nail clipping popping off and shooting across the room. And
I used to bite my toenails as a kid.
no. And the other one is, and this just happened recently. So we were on vacation last week, and then we're at the Miami airport having flown in, and there's a long layover, and we have some friends with us who are on another flight, and their flight got delayed. So we're sitting there, and this family comes and sits right near us, and they've got a couple of kids. They have somewhere between 2 and 25 kids. You know what I mean? Like you can't tell how many kids they have. And the kids are like crawling all over everything, and they're like hit me. I'm like trying to read, and they're like knocking the book, and everything. And then they leave, and it looks like an absolute like scene of devastation. There's like malted milk balls laying on the carpet. There's gummy bears ground into it. There's goldfish. I mean, they're there for like 30 minutes. It looks like they've been there for like 2 years, and they don't do anything to clean up. They just get up and leave. And so I think one of my pet peeves is anytime parents don't either have any kind of control over the kids or attempt to, and certainly if they can't, when they don't clean up after their kids. It's kind of like Emma Kate's dog poop thing. Yep. It's the adult version, or it's the human version of that. When you don't clean up after your kids after you've been somewhere. So people that are in restaurants and their kids just devastate the table, and there's all kinds of crap, and they don't make any effort to even help out with that. That drives me nuts.
I want the three of us to just shut up for the rest of the episode, because I've never seen Dave as animated about something so benign.
I'm like sitting here watching him like, holy smokes, he's getting geared up.
Like, we're going to pause so you can take your blood pressure, Dave. We want you to live through this podcast episode. I have two, maybe three. One's connected. Toilet paper, single-ply toilet paper. I just do not get, why is that the thing you're going to try to save 20 cents on? But then when toilet paper rolls, it comes from the bottom versus over the top. That's
the worst.
Bugs me. I don't get it, but to me, there's one right way to have toilet paper come out, and it's from the top. and double ply. The second is something more recent. And even something like today, went and got food at Panera Bread or other restaurants to where when you swipe your card, it immediately gives you the option to tip for your service, even though they've done nothing there. And then they'll turn around and they'll know that right then and there that you're not tipping them. And I just find that very off-putting and irritating.
That's at Panera, and it makes me crazy. Like, why am I going to tip you? You punched some little buttons. Thank you. Like, oh, God, please.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's
Tell us how you feel, Frank.
And you got on me for getting upset about
Right?
well, I expect that from Frank.
It's true.
I've never seen Dave so animated. The last time I think is when they brought out a chili dog for a meal for Dave. That's the last time I saw
love
him
a
so
chili
animated.
dog, yes.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's pivot then to pop culture pet peeves, the things about the arts and entertainment that we don't get, that we find very off-putting and irritating, whether it's a lazy cinematic trope like the token black character, or even in horror films that if you have sex, you're going to automatically die. What are some of the things when it comes to arts and entertainment that, whether it's rational or irrational, it just bothers you?
Honestly, the thought of going to a concert really bothers me. I don't get why people do it. And when people are sitting there saying, hey, I'm going to go see this concert this weekend, I'm like, oh, why? Why would you do that? It's like it doesn't make sense to me
not everyone
at
has
all.
not everybody has a pond to just hang out at on
Right.
the weekend.
Well, at least I can fish. That's better than going to see a stupid like. What do you, even I've been to concerts and it drives me crazy because what do? You're standing there and everybody's standing, so
What do
then
you
you can't
mean,
see,
what
so
do
you
you
got to stand.
I can't handle this one.
What do you mean, what do you do?
You say, like, okay, let me put it this way.
What's this thing called
This is a better
music?
example. I went to Nashville to visit Nashville, and Dr. Lauren King of Nashville put together this little dinner where we go. It's like called the Pharmacy or something. And you go there, and she's got this nice table right in front of the stage. And I'm sitting there, and this lady starts singing, and there's a guitar guy there. And I'm like, okay. And then I looked at Lauren. I was like, where am I supposed to look? What am I supposed to do? I don't know the words to the song. I don't know what is happening. Where do I look? And she said, you're a crazy person. I said, no, really. Am I supposed to look her in the eyes? Do I look at her guitar? Do I look at you? And she sat there and she goes, I hate you because now I know exactly what you mean. She
No,
had
she
nowhere to
did
look.
not say that.
Yes,
She
you
did
ask
not.
her.
I was
ask
there.
her.
I was there.
She did. Ask her. She sat right across from me and said, I can't believe this. Now I know what you're talking about. Ask her.
So, Frank, do you go to a movie and go, I don't know where to look? Should I look at this character or the other character?
It's
Should
a
I look at
movie.
the car? Should I look
It's
at...
a movie.
When you
a movie can't look back at you, and then if you make eye contact with
Frank-
the woman playing the guitar, it's weird.
What
How
about a stage
narcissistic
performance?
are you to think that she's looking at you out of everybody in the audience?
No, you make eye contact occasionally, and it's strange.
Well, Frank, you should watch porn because they're pretty clear where you're supposed to look.
if I'm sitting there and I'm watching her and she's singing and I'm not singing back, is that rude? Do I not know the words? Like,
my
it's just
gosh.
weird. It's so
This is
weird.
a very strange situation right now. Like, I don't even know. Can we move on?
Yeah, please do.
Emma Kate, what are your pop
It doesn't,
culture?
Well-
before she said, it just doesn't even seem like
No.
any human in the world has ever said anything like that.
I've met people who feel the same way.
I feel
No.
like this is
yes.
a Rick Sanchez, Rick and Morty episode that just goes to this really
Right?
deep, dark extreme. And
Like
what's
a-
this thing with music and like live performing?
Yeah, no.
I've seen over 200 concerts. I love concerts. And,
Dave, what do you do?
Where do you look, Dave?
sometimes I look here, sometimes there.
Do you sway? Do you
Sometimes,
move?
sometimes I sway, sometimes I don't. Sometimes
So, do you like clapping? That's weird. Like clapping along with a song, like we're all clapping at the same time.
Why?
It's just weird. It's just all the people doing the same thing. It feels no. I can't.
We need to take him to an all-day festival like Bonnaroo.
No.
Yes.
That is one of the strangest things I've ever heard.
That is very weird. Emma Kate.
Well, so I have a normal pet peeve, I think, with pop culture. So one of the classic movie tropes is the damsel in distress. I'm over that. I think we've seen that play out a bajillion times, and I want to see more strong female characters in film. I think Batman having to choose between Rachel Dawes and saving Harvey Dent. It was nice with the Black Panther movie, seeing all the strong females and, them taking action and kicking butt. So my pet peeve is the damsel in distress.
Okay. That's a good one. How about you, Dave?
I was thinking about this, and this sounds like a cop-out, but I'm just a sucker for a lot of things as far as...
You are. He speaks the truth.
Yeah. So I like a lot of music. I like a lot of movies. It's not a pet peeve. I don't like bad movies, but that's not a pet peeve. That's just, it's just a fact. So I was really hard pressed to come up with like something that really irritates me, because if it's something that tends to irritate me, I just avoid it, and I just don't become aware of it anymore. It's like how Frank got to with the superhero movies, where he's just over it. If there's a point where there's something that I feel like is just been beaten to the ground or overexposed or what, I don't get irritated with it. I just don't watch it or consume it anymore. So I don't have a ton of pop culture pet peeves, to be real honest.
I have two, and it's usually when these types of films are kind of lauded, and to me, I can't get on board with whatever cinematic merits it has. The first is when it's usually a romantic comedy where the guy treats the woman like dirt, and yet in the end, he wins her over. Like she accepts and tolerates that bad behavior. That to me just is just gets under my skin. Because you never see that reversed, in movies. But the other is, and I usually think this is because of the writer and director, is when you have some type of story and the central character is a very bland white male that's usually a stand-in for the writer and director. And every other character and every other storyline going in is way more interesting than the central character. There's this show on Amazon Prime called Red Oaks, and it's this sort of comedy, nostalgic comedy about the 80s. And all of the ancillary characters are quirky and they're funny, and they got all these neuroses. And then the central character the whole show is based around is this boring 20-something guy that, hey, guess what? He wants to become a movie director. Like, it's just so cookie cutter. We've seen it a million times. And it wouldn't stand out if everybody was bland and boring, but it's when all the other stories and characters have energy to them that really stands out. So let me ask you guys this, because Dave, I'd be interested if you have anyone in particular in this, is not so much having pet peeves around certain tropes, but are there certain actors or actresses that for whatever reason you just find irritating? For me, I have no rational reason why. They're great actors and actresses, but outside of the Alien franchise, I can't stand Sigourney Weaver.
I'm with you 100,000%.
And I have no valid reason. She's a great actress. She's been in great movies like Gorillas in the Mist or Working Girl, but I can't connect with her. I'm curious if anybody else has an actor or an actress that, for whatever reason, you don't connect with.
Well, let me ask you before you ask that broadly. Do you know why with Sigourney Weaver? Like, have you figured it out?
I have not figured it out. Other than maybe that the genre of Aliens, to me, like the world building is, I get immersed in, and then all these other kind of contemporary films she's in, I just find her off-putting. But like, she doesn't remind me of anybody. I think Nicole Kidman is another actress. But I haven't figured it out. Maybe I need to sit on your couch, Dave, and be psychoanalyzed.
Well, I wouldn't agree with Nicole Kidman. I can kind of relate to the Sigourney Weaver one, but I can't figure out why. But Nicole Kidman, man, after I watched her in, what was it, Pretty Little Liars or
Big Little Lies?
Big Little Lies or whatever. They're two shows with a similar title. man, I was like, she's going to win the Emmy for this, and she did, and she's terrific. I think for me, with a few exceptions, it would be Johnny Depp. Yeah, I mean, I think he it just feels like it's one variation of quirky bird character after another, and so yeah, I would say probably a little bit irritated by him.
I could see that. I'm having a hard time thinking of anyone from film. I can think of a lot of musicians off the top of my head, but yeah, like I would say like Kanye West or Taylor Swift, like some of those people really drive me nuts, but I can't, there's not anyone glaring that just drives me insane in film.
This isn't from movies, and I guess you consider it TV, but Televangelists.
Wow.
Sort of the modern day version. Who's the dude? Him and his wife. He's got kind of a mullet, huge house, maybe out of Texas. I can't think of
Joel Osteen.
Joel Osteen makes me insane.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's a given.
But also these motivational people like Banana Hands, Tony Robbins, freaks me out.
Banana hands.
That whole like sitting down and it's like there's a mega church here in Charlotte where I watched the guy and it just makes me feel really uncomfortable and really annoyed, and my brain immediately goes to, who are you scamming? Like, are you Jim and Tammy Faye? What is happening? That just really irritates me.
Yeah, add it to the list.
Yep.
Yeah, that's about right.
Well, let's wrap it up, and I'm curious to hear your guys' thoughts on this. We're all, in our professional practice, we all kind of adhere to positive psychology, which is really about focusing on the things that make life meaningful and purposeful, and the pursuit of happiness versus just overly fixating on the problem or the negative. But I'm curious to get your guys' take. What value do you see in verbalizing, or even just what we've done here? It's just having an opportunity to kind of vent and talk about things that get under your skin, irritate you, or that you hate. Is there any therapeutic value to doing that?
Sure. I mean, I think it's great sometimes to get things off of your chest, so to speak, and decompress a little bit. And sometimes, maybe somebody else was really bothered by something and you had no idea. And so then it's kind of like a call to action where then it's like, oh, wow, like we both are really having a hard time with this. Let's deal with it. I also think it's completely okay to complain if there's an issue with like a company. Like I will call my internet or cable provider immediately when I have like 1 day of outage and be like, give me money back on my bill. And I don't think that's a complaint. But
I think that's actually the definition of a complaint.
Okay, well, I mean,
I think that's like,
I don't think that's not a bad complaint. Let me rephrase that. Okay,
Kate says,
it is a
I will
complaint.
complain immediately, and I don't think that's a complaint.
And I don't think it's a complaint. No, you guys are right. It is a complaint. However, let me backtrack a little and clarify that there has to be boundaries on complaining in the sense of like talking about like a day-to-day sort of thing. Otherwise, it feels like someone's an energy vampire. Like if you're around someone that's complaining and negative all the time, I can't handle that.
I will tell you that my complaints or my pet peeves, they're all legit, but when I complain or get into an argument about it, it's just more fun than anything else. It gets under my skin, but it's also typically just weird, funny stuff.
But your complaints are normally like really ridiculous things.
I know.
And so then it's kind of like, oh, that's just Frank being Frank. Like it's not really a valid complaint.
No, Dave can testify to my fear of public music or concerts.
Public music.
Yeah.
How do you say?
How do you say?
It doesn't feel like it's a negative. Like, I don't know. And maybe somebody else can speak to that. Like, it doesn't feel, when Frank complains, it's like, oh, there's Frank being Frank. Like,
But
it's
I feel
not.
like when Sean or somebody or you or somebody said, yeah, we're going to a concert this weekend, it's just like, oh, why? I immediately kind of put myself in some kind of a music venue and just feel really uncomfortable.
Well, when Frank complains, I just feel better about my life. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to be okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I can think of two benefits. One is, there is a benefit to discharging negative emotion on something that's pretty innocuous or benign. So I think that it's kind of like the video game thing we've talked about. It's like
Yep.
better for kids to play these video games than to take out their aggression in other ways. So we tend to be in the camp of that. There's a lot of benefits to that. Same thing with this. It's like complaining about a movie, complaining about concerts, complaining about, it lets you discharge some negative emotion and energy in a way that doesn't hurt anything. The other is that because it tends to be funny, it is a way of bonding and connecting with people. So I think there is some benefit to that as well.
Yeah, that's what I'd come, that'd be the main point for me as well. It's like I have fun complaining, but usually when it comes to pop culture and stuff, it's things that is not going to change. I don't take it personally, but it's a lot of fun to vent and then to kind of find either like-minded people that share that same frustration, or just simply get into a fun debate about something that, like Dave said, is pretty benign in and of itself. But we would love to hear, what are your all's pop culture pet peeves? Is there a cinematic trope? Is there a band or an actor or an actress that you just cannot stand? Send us your picks at feedback@shrinktank.com.
And our final segment is what we call our doctor's orders. These are things that we're personally enjoying in pop culture. And Emma Kate, do you have something for us?
Yes, I actually just recently started reading a book. It's called Option B, and it's co-authored by Sheryl Sandberg and I'm blanking on the other guy's name, Adam Grant. And essentially, this book stemmed from tragedy in Sandberg's life, where she unexpectedly lost her husband. And it's about, this idea that we've all lost option A, and to some extent, we have to make the most out of option B. So it's about finding joy, building resiliency, and it's turning out to be a good book.
And Frank?
I want to recommend a graphic novel by Edgar Allan Poe called Edgar Allan Poe's Tales of Death and Dementia, illustrated by a guy named Gris Grimley. It's out of 2009, but I'm always way behind. But it is a very grisly and pretty looking visual description of 4 or 5 of Edgar Allan Poe's short stories.
Jonathan?
I want to recommend a documentary that is now available on iTunes and Amazon or Hulu. It's Look to the Sky. It's a documentary that actually Frank and I are both appear in. It's true stories about kids that are finding hope and inspiration through acts of service and bravery, directed by Brett Culp. Look to the Sky. And it's really focuses on the positive traits from Superman and how we can all make the world a better place if we live by those values.
And my recommendation is something I want to ask Frank if he's seen this yet. I recommend it to you. The Terror.
I have not seen that yet.
All righty. So it's an AMC show. It is about a bunch of guys in the 1860s or whatever time frame is that are up at the Northern Passage, where it's the Antarctic, and they get iced in, and all kinds of creepy, weird, horrible things happen, and super duper scary and weird and fun. So it's The Terror.
That's the race to Antarctica, right?
Right.
Yeah. Yep.
Very good. Very fun. All right. That's going to do it for this edition of the Shrink Tank podcast. We hope you'll check out shrinktank.com for great articles and videos. And also you'll find links to our Doctor's Orders products. And you can follow us on Twitter at @shrink_tank and like us on Facebook. For questions or comments, we hope you'll write us at feedback@shrinktank.com. And our producer and theme music composer, Sean Beck. For Emma Kate Wright, Jonathan Hedderly, and Frank Gaskell in Charlotte, I'm Dave Verhagen in Nashville. Tell all your friends about us and make it a great week.